Welcome all to our last roundtable today. We have the poverty team people. We had for all of you who are listening to us today. We had 10 sessions. This is the last session. We had many people working from April till now December. We had a few of them today with us. Thank you very much. These people are professors and doctors. Thank you, Clarice, Amanda, and Vania, all of them from Brazil, because they are going to be talking on behalf of quite a large group of people. They've been working with us for several months. So thank you, Clarice, Amanda, and Vania for joining us, and this is your floor.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you all for coming and to join us to these presentations. We're going to talk mostly about Peru and Brazil, welfare state's common challenges in the context of COVID-19. So we had prepared some introduction about the structural similarities between Brazil and Peru, even before the sanitary and economic crisis of COVID-19. We detect that these two countries of Latin America represents the 5 in the world with the highest rate of COVID-19 infected people. So this is serious because this is a response of all the context of neoliberalism and the structure of the welfare state, as we are going to talk about. So we detect at least 5 mainly points in common of these regions. Both of them was already experiencing a lot of regrets in the social protection systems that was created in these countries to fight against the lack of access to basic human rights as education, health, social protection as itself. Also, in the last years, the situation in Brazil and Peru was already aggravated with the austerity measure inputs that was adopted in these countries, impacting their vulnerable people in the devastating way. Also, we detect that GDP per capita characterized by a low budget for investments was associated with the precariousness of the public health care systems. So although here in Brazil we have a public healthcare system that is SUS, we have low budget investments, and this intensify our precariousness. Also, both countries recently implemented neoliberal reforms that contributed a weakened social protection network and labor markets. For a last mainly point, we also detect there are historically been suffering with increase of poverty and inequality rates. So considering this scenario, we consider the importance of reclaim the welfare state regime to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic in those 2 Latin American countries. Here we systemize, we detect the historical fragility of the welfare state system in Latin America. We research about the theories developed by a clock that detected that underdevelopment is not a stage that all country must necessarily go through. Is mostly a structural condition that is originated by a relationship of simultaneous coexistence of 2 processes that conditionate a duality of center and periphery system. So Brazil and Peru, in this case, is a exposed in a periphery system that only concern of technology and exported manufactured products. And that's the studies that we can find in Raul Prebisch, Celso Furtado, all these researchers that shows that the only way to make the rupture of this logic integrated in the system is a welfare state, a development state that will restructure this condition and then promote the development and the social securities. In this situation, we detect that a robust welfare state is based on a social regulation of economy activity that would demand a macroeconomic fiscal policies orientated to promote employment policies, guaranteeing social insurance and security to populations, and also universal access to high quality public services. So right now, Professor Clarice is going to talk about a little more about the welfare state importance.
Yes, so I'm going to, all the experiences we studied, all the criticals we researched about the situation of Latin American countries, they all, or a lot of them, come to this point, the importance of the welfare state. We have seen that as our welfare state was already being dismantled along the years, even before the pandemic, we had a lot of problems in our structure, in the situation, in the public services, in the part of the GDP in our economy that were going to finance public policies and all those things. But to claim that the welfare state is important to fight against COVID-19, we think it's important to understand better what is the welfare state, what are the characteristics that are the main points that we have to talk about, to say that we have a welfare state. So there are different positions. Some people say that what is important is the existence of social, it's before, the existence of social programs, social services, or social insurance. The amount of money spent on social programs, example, 20 to 40% of the GDP, the provision of social rights in some extent. If it is so, to what extent, from what extent, or from what amount of money we can say that we have, if we have at least 20% of the GDP, if we have social rights to this and that extension, if we have these social services, these social programs, the existence of social benefits that reduce inequality, what does the, if we talk about welfare state, should we think about mechanisms to reduce inequality? Is it necessary for the concept to have this kind of results? A complex of non-contributive relief programs for the poor, just for the poor. The overall, when we talk about welfare state, do we need reformulation of the overall distribution of income? The social regulation of economic action, what is important, what is crucial? If we don't have some of this, we won't be able to talk about welfare state. How do we work with that? We can go to the next slide, please, Aman. So what do we use to answer to these questions? We thought about Spig-Anderson theory, and he considered most of the existing theoretical models of the welfare state inadequate, and then he created his own typology. Why? And why do we use Anderson to understand why is it his theory is important to understand the concept of the welfare state. Because first, what is important to characterize a welfare state, according to Speak Anderson, inspired by Polanyi's contribution, is the fact that we are not talking about to what extent of social rights protection, but the importance is that the social rights and social policies, the existence of social rights and social policies in terms of considering them in terms of their capacity for decommodification. What does it means? After the welfare state arrived, let's say, after World War II, and a lot of programs, we have like this oriented and articulated group of actions and social programs, social rights, and that part, they start from this perspective, that it is important to have new relations between the economic action and social provision. That we are talking about the capitalist system, and there are some a very practical idea that it is important to balance, to have some mechanisms to balance the relations between the economic, macroeconomic scenario and social conditions and social provisions and things like that, in order to have some interference to this new function of the state is to modify the economic outcomes and the social relations that a free market society would create by itself. If we let the capitalism free, what is going to happen? A lot of relations would depend on this free market relations and free market society. But it produces a lot of inequalities, a lot of poverty, a lot of situations that are bad, even for the capitalist system to reproduce itself. So the idea is that instead of talking about mechanisms to punctually or social programs, just to in a very focused way, let's say, give money for poor, have some provisions, some programs, social programs just for the poor. What do we have? It is not sufficient, because we have a lot of situations besides what happens with poor people that demands an interference of the welfare state in order to make people less vulnerable for social risks. And these social risks, they go through aging, loss, employment loss, a lot of things that just living in our society, those risks appear. So when people depend just on pure market forces to make their living, to deal with all these risks, what do we have? We have a situation in which people become like commodities. What do we mean? The criteria to define the welfare state should be the degree to which social rights permit people to make their living standards independent of poor market forces. Even if they don't have, for example, an employment, they will have some pattern, some level of respect to their social rights, to their fundamental basic rights. They will have it guaranteed by this form. You can pass, please, Amanda. So this way of organizing the economic and social relations in society. So how does this welfare state operate? The welfare state operates by means of a complex amalgam of different institutions, programs, policies oriented to deal with these social risks. It depends for its solvency on economic policies, compelled contributions, raised taxes. So as Amanda was talking about ECLAC, our Economic Latin American Commission, we have a lot of theories, as she was saying, about the importance of this integrated vision between the economic regulation with macroeconomic policies and social provisions. So how do we finance this welfare state? We have to think in this way, integrated way, in order to fight against the common risks, as I have already said, the risks suffered by individuals and groups arising from the mere fact of living in society, the vulnerabilities that arise from life in society. This is what welfare state is about, to deal with these social risks. But in which way? In this integrated vision, and this is a kind of accordance, a kind of deal or pact between different social forces, social and economic forces. Historically, the welfare state didn't originate by some revolutionary idealism, some political ideas, but it was a group of reforms and compromise solutions, political coalitions that made possible to the economic system to keep going, but preventing that some degree of inequality, some degree of exclusion, social exclusion, made it impossible for the system to keep going. But the thing is, this welfare state system was created in a time that we have like industry, a lot of the main sector of economy was the industry. So we had a lot of the demands and the claims of the working class were addressed through, for example, unions that were strong, and they tried to change the balance among the rights and the conditions of the working class and the capitalists, let's say. So we have different welfare regimes, but what do we brought for here? First, we have to understand the welfare state. We have to understand this point, that every time we are talking about welfare state, we have those tensions among different groups and these claims for reforms and for more rights, all these things. And the problem is that every new program, new policy, or any kind of adjustment discussed, they create new balance among different forces, because we have new winners and new losers. We have people that will pay and people that will receive. So to what extent do when we decide to let's say, recognize more rights, we have to understand where the money to finance, to pay for that will come from. And so when we talk about the welfare state, we are talking about this permanent tensions that we have. When we don't have the social class, the working class organized, oriented, when we have a lot of changes in our economy, what happens? These people lose their power to try to change this balance, balance of power. And then we have what we have now. Okay, you can change, please. We have different conditions comparing to the moment where the welfare state was created. So now we have a lot, we will see, we have a lot of differences in our, for example, economy. We have the globalization that brought a lot of change in terms of the rights that are recognized for some groups. The countries, they go for the places where they will pay less taxes, and taxes are very important to finance these social programs. But the thing is, where the money is coming from, how do we have more power to change the balance, to shift the balance? This is something important to try to understand. And we have to have in mind that the conditions that we had when the welfare state was created, they changed a lot. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. But to go to this point that I would like to say is that we have two types of approach that dominate the explanations of welfare states: the narrow view and the broader view. We are going to defend here the importance of the broader view to deal with all the inequality, poverty, and that have been exacerbating during this COVID-19 pandemic. So the narrow view associates the concept of welfare state with the traditional social amelioration policies for poor people. They are concentrated in some provisions, some social programs, social policies that goes directly for poor people. What is the most recognized example of this kind of conception? The income transfer and social services, sometimes housing questions. In Brazil, we have a very important program, the Bolsa Família, that with this conditional income cash transfer, we had a lot of change in our economy. It is possible to stimulate, let's say, and to guarantee some patterns and to conditionate it to some education and health conditionaries to make the money come to some families that are in this group of poor people. And this is something that was very important in Brazil. But what we are going to say, what we say is that this kind of conception stresses on institutions and actors, not in the change of the structures of the whole system. This conception is frequently used by welfare state opponents that want to reduce the welfare state to very punctual and specific interventions for poor people. What are we defending here? A broader view in which the social regulation of economic action is based on the social regulation of economic action, understood as a complex of legal and organizational features systematically interconnected that regulate the relationship between state and economy. So what do we have? This is why we need some macroeconomic changes in order to finance not these punctual interventions, but broader, in this broader view, to make the state's role larger, to make a robust welfare state system, to manage and organize the economy and society with not only some punctual programs, but with employment policy, full employment policies, social insurance, social security, overall macroeconomic policies, fiscal policies, and so on. So, as I had said, this this view stresses the structures and whole systems and the importance of the state to create conditions to promote that decommodification, so that people don't depend on the the market relations to guarantee some basic rights. So we can change. And then among the different models, we are talking about the social democratic model that have in this narrow view. And the idea is to incentivize, to induce the production and distribution of social well-being with great objectives of eradicate poverty, unemployment, and complete wage dependency. So we have a shift in the way we talk about poverty, because if we have a lot of rights guaranteed by the state, people will depend less on their wage, on the market relations. So it would increase citizens' political capacities. It would reduce the social divisions that consists in barriers to political unity among workers. And not only that, when we have the biggest, the most unequal indicators in countries like Brazil and Peru, we have some these relations that derives from all this inequality. It makes some groups in society so powerful that they will have that balance in the forces in society. It would be very there would be a wave too big in some groups that would be even able to change the legislation, to like buy sometimes some amendments in constitutions. So their interests will be represented with this distortion. So it would be important to not to leave the things like that, so that you can have more balance in this relation. So there are some strategies like parliamentary class mobilization as a means for the realization of equality, justice, freedom, and solidarity. But as now we don't have like unions with the same force as we had during the time that the welfare state was created. And also we have some of these distortions in our democratic systems because of the superpower of some groups. So how can we keep talking about the welfare state with all these changes, with all this the decrease of these institutions through that through them we would be contribute to make this balance better. We can change, please. There are some responses. They have their limits, but the idea is that with the new context of social risks and where from these new risks come. They come in changes in the labor market, some demographic factors, some family structure change. And now we can talk about the COVID-19 that exacerbates poverties and inequalities. And we have a completely different, let's say, challenge for this welfare state. In recent decades, even before the COVID-19, the old situation, the old panorama, the old contingencies that motivated the emergence of the welfare state of the post-war they become outdated. We have, for example, high rates of long-term employment, and it has been just worsened and deepened with the COVID-19. The delay for young people to find a job. So some responses to this new context of social risks, they stress a lot the necessity of having, for example, education programs along the whole life of individuals, not only the basic education. They say it is important to have the social welfare state should provide these constantly updated, let's say, programs to make their skills adapt to the new technologies, for example, from the working class. And the changes we had with the women's entry into the labor market. So who is going to assume their position in taking care of their children? And if we don't have a welfare state that depends on, if we have a kind of relations that depend too much on families, on women, this will make it more difficulty for this change so that women can enter into the labor market. The technological change, as I have said, that is a result of this knowledge economy. And now we have even a post-knowledge economy that brings a lot of new challenges. And in countries like Brazil and Peru, what do we have? We have each time the amount of people that are not qualified, they don't have basic skills to this change in economy, they are going to be more and more excluded. And then they won't have, for example, a lot of rights that are derived just from the fact that that they have a job position. And then if you don't have the right to yes, the right to basic rights, because they depend on this. You just have some rights if you have a formal job, not a precarious job, and so on. And what I have said about globalization, the global market, the regulation that made all the legislation of these developing countries weaker. And we have the demographic factors. In Brazil, we are having it now. We are having a very the older people. They represent much more part of our society because of this aging. And then you have a lot of problems like longer retirement periods. You have much more pressure in the health system and so on to deal with this new challenge that were not there when the social welfare state, when the welfare state was created. And we have a lot of changes in family structure, like single-parented and childless families. And so who is going to take care of old elderly people if they don't have children, they don't have someone to deal with them? We will need each time. We have much more pressure to some of these provisions coming from the states. And so to deal with, besides all these risks that were already demanding more of the welfare state, we have the situation now of COVID-19 that it seems that even World Bank, even a lot of institutions that were against this robust welfare state, but they thought it was important to just to have some punctual programs for poor people. They are seeing that all this inequality, it is not good for the function of the whole system. And if we don't have, for example, healthcare systems, strong healthcare systems, we won't deal with all the problems that we are having with COVID-19. The spread of the pandemic will be controlled, very difficult to control. And besides that, we have now this idea that we have to think about health demands and on the other side, the question of guaranteeing a minimum wage or minimum provisions. It is decisive, because if we don't have, for example, social isolation, we don't have. This is a problem for the whole society. So the message we would like to leave is that it is important to have mechanisms to think together, to integrate the social and economic measures in order to guarantee that all the group of people that have been excluded for the all our past, they can be more integrated. Amanda.
Thank you very much. Amanda, is that all, or you want to say anything before we finish?
For me, I get contemplated by the conclusion Professor Clarice just made.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Clarice, Amanda, I can see Vania as well, and all the other people who've been working as part of the poverty team. It's been a pleasure, because again, we had 10 sessions all together. We started back in April with the Congress. So thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to stop now the recording, and we can have a bit of a discussion. Obrigado, the Brazilian team. Thank you very much.